Okay. So good morning. I'm Sean Silver. I work for the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, or MassDEP. I'd like to welcome everyone to a joint meeting of MassDEP's Construction and Demolition Subcommittee and also Recycling Market Development Workgroup. As I just announced a second ago, this meeting is being recorded. We really feel like it would be useful to disseminate some of the information from this morning's call to stakeholders who may be unable to attend. Of course, I'd encourage folks to speak freely, to ask questions. But yes, this will be recorded. We think there's an educational component to this that we could leverage. So, so that's what today's meeting is. If you were expecting something else, you're in the wrong place. So I'm sorry. But hopefully there's some valuable conversation to be had this morning about C&D markets. I'd like to start before we get to our wonderful lineup of speakers this morning. I'd like to introduce some of the team here at MassDEP. Aside from myself, there's Mike Elliott. He coordinates the C&D and asbestos programs for MassDEP. This meeting was really Mike's idea. I'm sure a number of you on this call have engaged in conversations with Mike and fellow stakeholders in the past and some of the challenges related to C&D recycling in Massachusetts. Similarly, and this is kind of how I come into play here, MassDEP has engaged a recycling market development work group for the past 3+ years to look at material markets through a broader scope. We're talking about food material or packaging, material from construction demolition projects. That's always coming up in those conversations. So Mike thought it would be a way to unite the two audiences. Maybe have some interesting discussions and some education this morning as well. Also here this morning is Claudine Elian. She's our branch chief for commercial waste reduction. Claudine has a real keen interest in, particularly in market development through the lens of research and development. My colleagues Joanne Lai and Soaib Sikter are here as well. Among other responsibilities, they shepherd two major market development initiatives for us, which are the Waste Reduction Innovation Grant, that's Joanne, and the Recycling and Reuse Business Development Grant. Everybody likes grant programs. So Mike, Claudine, Joanne, Soaib, they're all available here, in this virtual meeting room to answer any specific questions about MassDEP programs. I should be actually sharing my screen right now, and I'm not. So let me see if I can get that going real quick. Apologies for that. It's all good and everything seems seamless until you show your reliance in the technology. All right, come on. There we go. So let's see, there's a title screen. Here's our agenda for today's meeting. Figured that we'd start the meeting with by going over some broader goals for the subcommittee and the work group. Our program speakers today, there's a list of them. I'll introduce them each individually, and then we have a couple of announcements at the end. Today's meeting, we're really approaching it with an emphasis on resource recovery, which might be lacking locally, but functioning regionally or perhaps further afield. And our guests are going to speak to those topics. As I mentioned, our program speakers today on the subject of clay brick recycling, Mr. Xavier Brochu, who's the general manager of Brick Recycle, which is based in Quebec, Canada. You can see the beautiful snow on the trees behind him. For clean gypsum wallboard recycling, Mr. Terry Weaver, who's the president of USA Gypsum and also a board member of the Construction Demolition Recycling Association. On the subject of asphalt shingle recycling, Mr. Dan Horton, who's a founding partner at ASR Systems, also like Terry, a CDRA board member, and he's a chair of CDRA's Asphalt Shingle Recycling Committee. On the subject of rigid post-consumer plastics, such as siding, decking, PVC pipe, etc., Alex Fernandez, who's the VP of Government Affairs and Advocacy from the Polymeric Exterior Products Association, will be speaking with us this morning. So that's the order that everyone will be making their appearances. I do have, I went through the introductions there. I do have a couple of housekeeping items here. We'd encourage all attendees to ask questions, either in the chat, which, if you're familiar with the Zoom format, you know how to get to that. If you don't, there's also a raise hand feature, which sometimes is just easier and more efficient for folks to ask their questions out loud. But we have everyone muted, again, to keep the line clear here. But if you would raise your hand, we'll get to you in the order which you requested. So we'll make sure of that. And also, this recording will be posted to the MassDEP website at the conclusion of the meeting. So unless there's any specific questions, we'll get going. A few MassDEP specific slides here, and then we'll get to the presentations. So one of the reasons that we're here this morning is the Solid Waste Master Plan. The master plan governs our solid waste and recycling policies in the Commonwealth of Mass, where nearly 6 million tons are disposed annually. So we have a dwindling in-state landfill capacity, a variety of other factors going on. The most recent solid waste master plan, which is the 2030 solid waste master plan, called for a 30% reduction in disposal by 2030. And our data suggests significant progress in many areas, but due to, again, a variety of factors, including economic activity in the state, we're behind on that goal. So we've conducted a mid-course assessment of the master plan, really a way to talk about what's working, what needs work, and how to prioritize and order our steps over the next several years. And we've had some meetings to that end where we've taken stakeholder feedback, we've developed some initial recommendations, and expect to publish that assessment, the mid-course assessment, in January of 2026, which is, again, just over the halfway mark of that 10-year master plan. So we're hopeful that there's some value to the conversations that we've had, and just kind of reinvigorating, reorganizing our goals on the master plan to push for success in the next 5 years and forward. Within that, there's also been an assessment of our action plans, one of which is the C&D action plan, which has 4 main objectives: improving job site waste management, enhancing collection and processing, developing end markets, and promoting state interagency cooperation to advance leading by example. That's an important one. We're here today for Objective 3. We're looking to develop end markets for recycled material recovered from CMD processing facilities, right? And that is a direct collaboration with our market development work group, where we talk about such subjects all the time. So this webinar is just a step in that direction. You can access, and again, this presentation will be posted after the meeting, you can access the master plan via the link, the action plan via the link provided. Also, with the recycling market development work group, we have a recycling market development action plan, It really started with this work group back in 2022. We've had 10 meetings of that recycling market development work group. The action plan prioritizes potential investments to address market deficiencies. We're trying to do that through 3 different ways, one of which is through business support and economic development strategies. We're also looking to build demand for recycle projects, and we're also looking at research and development strategies for products, equipment, and technologies. Some of the early deliverables out of that action plan, which was published just in 2024, thanks to a lot of the work of our team, we have solicited and plan to award our very first round of waste reduction innovation grant recipients. We also have a recycling business guidance document, which kind of gathers all of the how do I do this in Massachusetts tools. We've also had a lot of conversations with state organizations, quasi-state organizations, private sector resources, just really bringing out a lot of the opportunities and, existing resources that are already there. Yeah, some stuff we're going to have to start bare bones to get these markets working, and some there's already opportunities and resources that are out there. So just bringing those to light, and we'll continue to develop those relationships and work on a number of our action plan goals as we go forward. So, that's kind of why we're here today. And I was just curious if there's any questions at this point. Otherwise, we will have our first speaker of the day. I do see a raised hand. Let me just move a box around on my screen. It's Mike. Okay, Mike, what do you got?
Yeah. Thank you, by the way, Sean. That was a great introduction. And I thought you were very diplomatic in the way you described our progress towards our 30% waste reduction goal and saying that, we're making progress in some areas and other areas we're not. Well, I'm sorry to uh, report to this audience that one of the areas where we're having the most trouble, where we're seeing the largest increases in waste disposal is in the C and D waste streams, the non-MSW. So MSW is doing very well. They're actually declining, and which is impressive compared to the gross domestic product of our state. The economy has been growing, but we've kept the MSW flat and, in fact, declining a bit. C&D by contrast is not. C&D is going up. So that's why um, developing new markets for the materials, finding new markets so that we're generating less C&D waste. The top of the waste hierarchy, let's not generate the waste in the first place. And if we do generate it, make sure that we have markets where we can send it for reuse or recycling, which is, really the point of that objective in our C&D action plan is to create more markets. And so I'm really excited to do this. This is the first time we've done this,
Yeah.
a joint meeting, and I'm very excited to see where this goes. And I hope we're going to have some more meetings like this in the future.
Yeah, there's a lot of materials to cover here. And Mike, thank you for, providing that context. I was, trying to approach it positively because a lot of people can look at it and say, hey, you haven't made any progress on your disposal. And in fact, we have in a lot of areas. We know, for instance, with food waste that we're diverting more food waste than ever, and that's one of the largest, material components in the waste in the state. We're diverting more than ever there. We've had successful implementation and diversion of mattresses, from municipalities and institutions. That's been going on over the past several years. Our textile recycling has grown, but yeah, that stuff, while impactful to the overall big picture, when you get some of this real heavy stuff, that's that's not getting recycled. Yeah, that throws off your tonnage, right? So yes, this is a very important conversation. Again, I'm not approaching it from, and Mike isn't either, approaching this from a hey, we're a negative perspective. But yeah, there's some ways that we're not doing enough, and when you're looking to grow markets, that's how you do it. So how can we do this? How can we do it locally? How can we come up with regional solutions? Those are the sorts of conversations that we're having all the time, and we look to kind of continue to develop those today. So thank you, Mike. Appreciate that perspective. Okay. And folks are still joining, which is great. We're up to around 60 attendees. Fantastic. And yeah, we'll get going with our first speaker this morning. I'll pull down my screen share, actually, take one for the team. But our first speaker this morning is Xavier Brochu. He's the general manager of Brick Recycle, which is a company that transforms how bricks are recovered and reused in construction. He collaborates with owners, designers, and contractors and helps integrate brick reuse into projects that reduce the carbon footprint of the masonry work by up to 80% and remain cost effective. He's passionate about innovation. He's convinced that new technologies play a key role in transforming the sector by improving productivity and by accelerating its transition toward a more sustainable practice. We are happy to have Xavier here this morning. And Xavier, I'm sorry for the kind of hitch in the start here. I
No
do
worries.
see one more raised hand, so I would like to address Caroline if I missed you there
No, I
during that
just
pause.
went up. I was just going to ask if each of
Yeah,
the speakers could put their website and LinkedIn profile in the chat just during the course of this hour so we can stay connected when we hang up. Thanks.
that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
sure. I'll
Okay,
share
yeah.
mine after my
So
presentation.
Xavier, feel free to take it away, please.
Perfect. Just get started. So we're talking about reducing waste. I think that's also what we're all about. Uh, and I wasn't planning on starting with that, but I'll do it. One brick on a wall two is about 2 kilos. So that means that and I'm sorry for it being in kilos, but that means it's for 1,000 square feet wall. We have about 13 tons of metric waste that every time we do a renovation we have to dispose of. So at Brick Classic, we're all about keeping those bricks on the same job site so that they can be reused. Brick reusal, I don't know if you are aware, but it's something that's been done for more than 100 years in North America on multiple heritage building, and it's always been done the same way. Pretty much like with a pick and a hammer, chiseling away the mortar on a brick, and it's mostly reserved for a specific heritage building. Why? Well, it's because replacing new bricks is oftentimes what we do when we renovate a brick facade, because it's the quick and easy solution. Even if it comes with a high cost, new bricks are expensive, high GHG emissions, and a loss of heritage value on a building. Because when we clean brick manually, it's something that's long and demotivating. It's 35 and even up to 50% more expensive restoring bricks with a chisel and a hammer compared to new bricks. It required skilled labor, but it does have lower GHG emission and helps preserve the heritage value of the building. On that kind of project, you can save about 80% of your bricks if you reuse them. But that increase in cost means that it's only really done for heritage building and only where it's really needed. And oftentimes, what happens in a masonry renovation project is that we use new bricks and we dispose of the old one. And Brick Classic, we were at the beginning, it started as a masonry contractor in Montreal. We were doing about $8 million worth of masonry renovation project in the Greater Montreal area. And on half of these projects, they were heritage building, so we had to manually clean those bricks on those projects. And at some point in 2019, we said there must be a better way to do that. We looked in Europe because we figured out that they already had a solution. There was no solution available to quickly remove mortar off bricks, so we invented it, and we're now a f- a separate company, and we're commercializing our invention in Europe, in Canada, and in the US. And with Brick Classic, we're able to remove mortars of bricks up to 70% faster than chisel and hammer and manual methods, which means that on renovation project, we're about the same cost or up to 50% cheaper than the options of putting in new bricks. So which means that on top of reducing the carbon footprint of a construction project, reducing the amount of waste that are generated by the project, and allowing the preservation of the full heritage value of a building, we can also even be an option that's cost effective. That's our big differentiating factor. And when we talk, before I go into the actual solution, when we quickly talk about environmental impact of bricks, 11% of the world carbon emissions come from building material. 40% of that is from cement, clinker, clay, and bricks. And our carbon footprint of our industry is set to double by 2050. And when we look at the actual uh, carbon footprint of bricks itself, it's the material that has the biggest carbon footprint when we install new on a building. That means that if we can keep those bricks on the building, we can have a pretty big environmental impact. Um, and on top of everything else, and it's a good thing because bricks is a material that has almost that can last for hundreds of years. We're doing project in Europe with bricks from the 16th, 17th century. When a brick is installed on a wall properly, it can stay there, and it's rare. It's rarely the actual brick that's gonna fail when there's an issue with the wall. It's gonna be the anchors behind the bricks. It's gonna be structural issues with the building, and even in that case, usually we can still use the bricks when we redo the building. And what we're even seeing is that even some older bricks that are 100 years old, have better compression values and have better specs than even new bricks that we have right now in the market. There's a big case for using those bricks. Um, and they have really like a character that we don't find in new bricks because only time can give a certain patina to a brick. How does our machine work? It's very easy. It's a it's a it's a two-step process where you have an operator that's going to take a brick and on the bottom left corner of our machine clean the head of the brick. and then it's gonna be put on a trolley, and it's gonna go between two diamond cutting blade guided by laser that are gonna remove the mortar that are gonna be on the top and the bottom of the brick, on the beds of the brick. So a very simple process. And as you can see, this is a 30-second video, and we've pretty much cleaned 3 bricks. That means that a worker that has taken his Monster, his Red Bull in the morning, can do a good 6 bricks per minute with the machine. Those can vary depending of how hard the brick is, the actual worker on the site, all of that. But it's much more efficient than actually using a pick and a hammer. So our machine, I've said it before, we're 3 to 5 times faster than manual cleaning methods. We're also non-percussive because we're using blades. We're not using a hammer, which means we're breaking less bricks than older methods, and we're preserving the full integrity of the bricks. And it's also very, very important because if you deconstruct a wall, you might have a small increase of cost to kind of properly manage those bricks and prepare it to be cleaned. And the more bricks you keep, the better your return on investment. The other thing that's very important, we can clean even hard and sticky mortars. Where we've just finished a project in the Toronto area where the mortar was so hard that the actual contractor was cleaning had done a trial run and was able to manually clean 120 bricks in a full day. So with our machines, they did 5,000 in a week, this late November. So we can do even the harder mortars, and it's something that opens the door for a lot more buildings that we wouldn't have been able to even clean the bricks, even if you would have wanted to. We're adjustable to all bricks in North America. We've had a few projects in Europe where the bricks were non-standard and all of that, but in North America, all North American brick can be run with the machine. It's electrical, mobile. We can bring it on the job site. We have contractors that are running it out of their yard. We have contractors that are putting it on their FRACO, their masonry elevator. There's all kinds of. It's very, very. You can use it. It's very, very flexible in how you can use it, and it's very important because every single construction project is different, and you might not you can use it in the most efficient way every single time. We can also train a user on using the machine in about 30 minutes. We've even done project where the machine was at a facility where it was used by people in social reinsertion program, and they were able to get up to speed very, very quickly. So a wide range of people can use the machine. Even on a job site, when you come in, we can be operational in about an hour if everything goes right and all of that. It's ergonomic safe. From a noise perspective, we're at 74 decibels, which is not that really, really not that loud for a construction site. We still do require workers to put the hearing protections, but it's something that's easy to bring on a job site and that's not going to be particularly disturbing. And the machine, of course, comes with a pretty big dust vacuuming system because cleaning brick does emit silica dust. And we're cleaning it with a 2-step process with a cyclone X separator and a vacuum unit. That's also the same kind of vacuum unit you're going to see in the pharmaceutical industry or the asbestos remediation industry. From a cost perspective, this is a project I really love to present in these kinds of discussions because we really have like the 2 scenarios that were estimated and that kind of were looked into. So it's a major restoration of an elementary school in Montreal. It was a $27 million value project, and it's all Canadian, but it's only $7 million value project. And within that project, about 10%, $2.45 million was the masonry contract. And within that masonry contract, there was 3,500 square feet of a brick facade to deconstruct, remove the mortar, and reinstall. And it was a very sticky mortar and hard to clean. So when the contractor bid on the job, they bid planning to clean the bricks manually. So at 23,000 bricks, they were planning to clean about 30 bricks per working hours. So and breaking about 20% of the bricks. So they had allocated like $68,720 to in terms of cost in their bid to clean the bricks. And using our machine instead of cleaning them manually, when we brought the machine on site, they were able to clean bricks 3 times faster, break less bricks, and the total cost of that brick cleaning operation was 25,000 instead of 68. So they were able to pocket an extra $40,000 pure profit on their job. And in terms of comparison, for the rest, if we had used bricks at the same cost as the rest of the project, and we would have used new bricks instead of reusing bricks with our machine, it would have been about a $41,000 cost and an extra 18 tons of CO2. So and close to 45 tons of extra waste from the project. So really here we have it's really with our machine we're able to even be cheaper than you and be a really efficient solution for our client. I have a few other projects I can present. This is one we did in Detroit, late 2023, early 2024, where the first Cadillac assembly line was transformed into a 151 apartment building. We had a bunch of different models of bricks, and they were able to clean 1,000 to 1,500 bricks daily with our machine to do their project. So about 2 months. So we brought the machine on site, and they were able to clean the big pile of bricks that you can see right on the picture, and really like conserve as much as possible the original character of the building. This is a project we did in Montreal. I really again, I like presenting it because you can see that the before and after. So before you have on the left, you have a brick facade, the original brick facade, and on the right, the after we've removed the bricks, removed the mortar, and put it back in. So what we did because of there was different bricks were patinaed differently depending of where they were on the wall. When they cleaned it and they re-put everything else, they were able to kind of mix them all and get the result that's I feel is even better than what was originally there. We also have another one we did in Montreal again, in a very difficult job site. It's we have a pretty a mountain in the middle of Montreal, and we have buildings all the way up to the mountain. And this one was on the mountain with a very difficult muddy access to the site. It was very difficult to go in and out of the site and bring in containers to remove the bricks. And bring in new bricks would have been very expensive because the access was very difficult. So instead, they brought the machine on their job site, removed the mortar of the brick they had, and put it back on their building. So again, that's about a 2-month project, 20,000 bricks cleaned and reused, and we're at about 1.80 Canadian, so that's 120 something USD per bricks. So again, even it really solved the problem they had, and we still were very cost competitive compared to newer brick options. Another project, this is a conversion in Rimouski, which is a more rural part of Quebec, and it was a conversion of a couple of buildings from residential to apartment rental, and they decided to reuse their bricks as part of they had like constraint from the municipal authorities there, and reusing the bricks allowed them to get their permit faster. At the beginning, they weren't even if it would have been the same price or a bit more expensive, they would have done it to get their permits faster. But we were able to even find grants in that area for that project. And what we pretty much did was we had the masonry contractor go there, remove the bricks, put the bricks on pallet. We transported the bricks to a secondary facility about 20 miles from that project, where we partnered with a local nonprofit that had a social insertion mission, and the bricks were cleaned there and brought back on site to be reused. So that's another. It's a very interesting, very cool project. And even for us, what we find in Canada is that it's easier to be spec'd on institutional projects by schools, industrial actors, and municipalities if we are partnering with nonprofits and things like that in their area, and we create jobs and things like that for them. So that's an overview of what we're doing. So we are currently we are in Montreal, Quebec, Ottawa, so all across Canada and in the US as well. We have even have a, we have it's not there, but we have even have a machine in Los Angeles right now that we've used to do demos, and we're starting to develop the market there. And we have machines right now in stock and ready to do project in Baltimore. We're also distributing in in Europe, mostly right now in the north of France, Luxembourg, Belgium, Holland, and the UK. So if you have questions, I'm ready to answer them.
Thank you, Xavier. Do any of the participants have any specific questions on brick recycling? Yeah, I see a hand raised. Yeah, please go ahead.
Xavier, this is Gilles Bernardin.
Gilles.
Could you comment what you do with the mortar?
Yes, yes, that's a very good point. So even right now in the Greater Montreal area and in Quebec, what we've been able to do with the mortar of the bricks that our machine is removing, we've partnered with a cement factory from the company from Lafarge, and they're taking the mortar and they're using it as part of their the cement creation process. So we're really able to kind of be almost a zero waste when we do a masonry renovation. And Gilles was an integral part in the getting that partnership done.
Thank you for your role in that. Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm actually seeing a bunch of questions popping up here. I see Andrea has her hand raised. Andrea.
Yeah, hi. Thank you. I really enjoyed your presentation. Are you selling the equipment, renting the equipment? Do you bring out service teams? How does that actually work?
So we're partner with the distributor in the US called Fraco that distribute masonry elevator elevation platforms and a lot of masonry related tools and equipment. And we were doing service through them in the US, which means we do have a 24/7 service line for machines. We have a full US based team and in the US that can service the equipment. And we are doing right now we are doing we sell the unit. We can do rental as well, and we have like a rent to own or trial rental type of deal that are available.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah, we had a similar question from Dottie regarding you selling the service, the equipment, or do you build to bring the equipment and a technician? So,
All of the above.
yeah. We do have a question. Another question says from Mike, congratulations on the technology. Thank you for sharing. And you answered the mortar part. Are there any other secondary waste streams that are produced through the process, and where do they go?
Yeah, so when you do masonry renovation, what's going to be left are going to be I don't know the term in English, but the bottom and the top of the windows, the
Hmm.
bottom and of the windows that can be disposed of as you would for a brick, which pretty much going to be crushed for aggregates and things like that. And there's going to be the metallic anchors and that type of thing that can be recycled.
Got it. Any other questions? I mean, I was kind of curious, just from a perspective of someone with a, relatively new business. Have you found it seems like, at least from the geography we see on the map here, you have found a real interest from a lot of folks who are doing projects. Have you had any challenges or barriers to getting greater acceptance of, your equipment and your process?
Yeah, I would say so. In the world in the construction sector, like we're in this industry that's fast paced with a lot of with tight budgets and tighter schedules, lots of regulations, and there's unions and there's architects working with engineers with clients. There's a lot of stakeholders in a project, which means that even if you're bringing in a solution that's cost effective, reducing waste, protect the heritage of the building. It's not a given that it's gonna be used on a project because it's a new way of doing things, which means that oftentimes the general contractors and that kind of people are gonna see it as a risk and are gonna see it
Yeah.
like, yes, I could do it, but is it really gonna save me money? Is it really gonna be fine for my schedule? I've never done it before.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the first the biggest hurdle that we're seeing in North America to adoptions of brick reusal and other like using like window frames and things like that and other companies where businesses we're talking with. What we're doing on our end to kind of minimize that friction is really support our clients on project. That means like we're working with the New York City Authorities right now on a couple of projects. We're looking at the projects with them. We're looking at how to best use the machine. We're in the process of doing even the cost analysis of like what it's gonna cost with new bricks instead and using the machine, kind of helping them along. We're sharing spec sheets that were written by institutional uh, clients in Canada, so they can see how to spec the machine in their city. So we're kind of trying to minimize all that friction, and we also have very flexible plans to either rent the machine, or rent to own the machine, on the machine. So make it easy to bring it on a job site.
Thank you. And I see one more question from Gilles.
Yes, Xavier, correct me if I'm wrong, but uh, besides the mortar, the clay bricks that are broken that cannot be reinstalled.
They can be sent as a to the cement factory as well to be crushed and integrated into the cement process.
So that makes those job site zero waste.
Yeah, or yeah, close to zero waste. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's great. All right.
Gilles and I didn't talk before the meeting.
I appreciate the presentation, appreciate all the answers to some good questions here. We are going to move it along to our next presenter. Mike wrote in the chat here, Mike Elliott said, we do have some general contractors on the call. Be curious to see if there are any opportunities to use brick recycle technology in projects here in Massachusetts and New England. So some food for thought here.
I'm sure there's plenty, and if there's one, we're here to help you, and it's gonna be a pleasure for us. We can go down to Massachusetts and look at projects with you.
Right. And yes, I know there was a previous request to drop your LinkedIn or any other information into the chat. Yeah, that would be helpful for making connections. I think making connections is one of the more valuable things that we can get out of today's meeting. So thank you, Xavier. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Okay. At this point, we'll move it along to our next presenter. I think we're on time so far, so we'll see if that holds. But our next presenter is Terry L. Weaver. He's the president of USA Gypsum. He's dedicated over 30 years to the agriculture and construction sectors with a significant focus on sustainable gypsum drywall recycling for over 2 decades there. Under his leadership, USA Gypsum has pioneered innovative solutions for reclaiming and repurposing gypsum, offering sustainable alternatives for agriculture and construction. Following the acquisition of USA Gypsum by Beneficial Reuse Management, or BRM, in 2023, he continues to lead as division president. The merger integrates recycled drywall into BRM's portfolio of gypsum sources, which enhances the company's commitment to sustainable practices and expanding gypsum supply for various industries. He is an advocate for environmentally responsible practices. He's been deeply involved in industry associations, a past president and chair of the Construction Demolition Recycling Association's Gypsum Recycling Committee. His expertise and leadership have also contributed to advancing sustainable recycling methods within the C&D waste sector. Terry's unwavering dedication to sustainability and his innovative approach to recycling make him a thought leader and a driving force in the evolving landscape of beneficial reuse and environmental stewardship. So thank you for being with us here this morning, Terry. And I guess, yep, he's started his sharing, and we will be hearing from Terry momentarily. Are you potentially on mute, Terry?
I was
Let me check.
unmuted. Do you hear me
Okay,
now?
there we go. Yes, we can hear you loud and clear and see what you're presenting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sean, and thank you everybody for giving me a few minutes to talk about gypsum drywall recycling in Massachusetts. I'm here to kind of talk about the regulations that are in place versus the reality of what's happening on the ground. And Sean's really introduced me, and so I am president of USA Gypsum based in Denver, Pennsylvania. We also now have operations in Savannah, Georgia and Chicago area. As part of beneficial reuse management, we move about 1.5 million tons worth of gypsum annually into various markets, both in closed loop and in open loop. It's also my honor to serve on the Construction Demolition Recycling Board. I'm trying to advance my screen here.
Okay, we can give that a second.
There we go.
There we go. It's a nice transition there, very fluid.
So it's my honor to serve on the Construction Demolition Recyclers Association. As you've heard, there's a lot of good thought leaders in C&D industry that are members of the association. And we have a conference coming up in sunny, warm Tampa, Florida in January that we would love to have you attend if you're interested in sharing time and networking with other like-minded people who are interested in advancing C&D recycling. As part of my volunteering for the CDRA, I also happen to chair our gypsum recycling committee. And if you have an interest in a deeper dive into gypsum drywall recycling, I'd encourage you to join us. The graphic that you're seeing here attempts to show all the moving parts that are involved with various stakeholders throughout the life cycle, starting on the upper left, where we introduce water, gypsum, and recycled paper into manufacturing processes, which is then distributed out to construction sites who generate the waste, and then hopefully it's recovered either in a closed loop back into new board or into agricultural cement, which are really the three primary end markets. But unfortunately today, most of it is headed for disposal, and we'll talk more about that, which is really the reason we're here, and what is the Massachusetts mandate exactly, and what have the market outcomes been. So as part of that, we're going to talk about why recovery is low, why mixed C&D processors can't recover the material on their process lines, what we can do to change the needle, and a little bit about the end markets that support that higher recovery. So I believe it's 2010 when Massachusetts actually implemented a drywall waste ban as part of several others, but it bans new gypsum drywall waste from being disposed in landfills. And about 2013, this guidance that you're looking at was issued. And what we say here is that loads that include clean gypsum wallboard must be sorted to the extent it can be done safely to remove clean gypsum wallboard to the greatest extent possible prior to any mechanical processing of the C&D waste load. Facilities will not be allowed to transfer to another C&D handling facility mixed C&D loads that contain clean gypsum wallboard without first separating it. And in order to be eligible to receive mixed C&D waste loads, that means as part of their permit, a C&D handling facility must implement operating procedures to safely and effectively separate clean gypsum wallboard. So very good guidance and a great plan. So what's happening today? The regulation versus reality. We believe there are between 40 and 90,000 tons of new gypsum drywall waste cutoffs that are landfilled today. We know that about 2,000 tons are recycled. We believe that that is a 2 to 4% recovery rate, and so we have a compliance gap of 95%. And I'm throwing around a lot of numbers here, so we'll provide a little background to those numbers as I move along. So first, unlike many other products that are reclaimed in the C&D waste stream right now, where they have a challenge to move those materials into markets for beneficial use, the end markets and the capacity to process them for drywall exist. We have three primary markets, as I mentioned before: cement, agriculture, and closed loop back in the new drywall. And those provide a strong, stable market. The processing capacity exists. So the problem is really not the demand for the recovered products, but the lack of collection and separation. So what I'm really saying is that the end markets align and the waste generation aligns, but the recovery in the middle doesn't. And that's despite the fact that gypsum costs are up significantly in the last 5 years, along with disposal costs. And we also need to consider that drywall is a human health issue because it contributes to H2S, or hydrogen sulfide gas, when it's introduced into landfills. It also contaminates the gases that they collect and the leachate that they collect from those landfills. So we have multiple good reasons to keep it out of the landfill and going to beneficial use. So about those numbers I was throwing around, some of those are estimates, but one thing that we are fairly certain of, these are numbers that are produced by the USGS quarterly. So I pulled 2024 numbers. We know that 852,000 tons of new drywall was shipped to New England for construction. Now the USGS doesn't break it out by state, so I did some work and just took the population of those states and assigned the tonnages that would be appropriate. And if I use a 15% waste factor, which I believe is conservative, Massachusetts would produce roughly 59,000 tons of clean, new gypsum drywall cutoffs during construction process, suitable to be recovered. Another way to think about the numbers are looking at waste composition studies that have been done, and there are a handful of very comprehensive studies that have been done. So I listed several here: North Carolina, Georgia, Colorado, Vermont, and Massachusetts. And the average is a 6% gypsum content. You'll notice that Vermont and Massachusetts are a little lower. That may be methodology, or it may be the type of construction in your geographical area, and that we have a little more demolition going on. So that gypsum right now can't be recovered, or is not required to be recovered. So that may be why we see some lower numbers in Vermont and Massachusetts of 4% to 3% in mixed C&D loads. So how I think about the numbers is, we know that there's about 1,500,000 tons of mixed C&D waste that's generated in Massachusetts using MassDEP's numbers. If 3% of that is clean gypsum drywall, that's 45,000 tons. If it's 6%, that's 90,000 tons. So somewhere in that region. We know that only about 2,000 tons have been recycled, so we have a 2.2 to 4.4% recovery rate. And regardless of whether you want to take my numbers to harder nut, I don't think you can find anything that would support a recovery rate better than 5%. So let's talk a little more about the types of drywall that can be recycled, because not all of it can. So the types that are 100% recyclable, that means a facing and the core are regular and type X drywall, which is 86% of all the drywall sold in New England. Consists of, like I said, a gypsum core, which is 100% recyclable, the paper facing, which is recyclable for beneficial use. And just a point that I'm often asked about is the moisture to us is not important. So, you know, if it gets wet during collection, storage, and what have you before it's transported to us for recycling is not important. What is not recyclable today by us is gypsum drywall that was produced through demolition, or that has been painted, or the specialty board at 14%, which is mostly the fiberglass face drywall that you see used on the exterior of buildings that has a real bright yellow, purple, or green color. So let's talk somewhat more in more detail about why this isn't happening. So C&D in Massachusetts goes to a processing center. And this is a picture of a typical processing center. Waste is pushed up on a pile, is grabbed by equipment and fed into processing lines for separation. And they're engineered to put through huge quantities of equipment. And really, once drywall enters that pile you see on the picture, it's not going to be recovered. To give a little more detail why that is, the processing lines typically pick the material up with grapples, which begins crushing the material. It then sometimes goes through pre-crushers that sizes the material down, and then crosses screens to get dirt and other fines out. After that process, there's very little identifiable drywall that can be picked off a processing line like you see in the picture here. And so it's unrecoverable once that mixed waste processing begins. And that's why drywall must be separated before it enters a mixed C&D system. And actually, you know, Massachusetts recognized that years ago when they put the requirement into place that it needs to be separated before it gets to a mechanical processing line. So, you know, this challenge was recognized, you know, a long time ago in best practices. So where's that 90,000 or 45,000 ton, whichever number you choose to believe, going? Much of it ends up being in small pieces like I discussed, and those process lines have screens on the front to take the dirt out. When you look at that material, you'll readily see that there's lots of gypsum in it. See the white pebbles. And if it's a larger piece and doesn't fall through that screen and isn't picked off the line, then it ends up in process residuals. But either way, the process fines are typically used as alternative daily cover at landfills, or they're simply railed to a landfill or trucked to a landfill, as the case may be. Either way, 95% of the drywall waste that's generated in Massachusetts today is designated for a landfill. So it might sound like I'm putting all the responsibility for the lack of diversion on the processors, and I'd like to say that we really need to look at the front end, and MassDEP recognized this early on. You know, and that if it enters these mechanical processing lines, it's not going to be recovered. But, you know, we've got to think about who really owns this waste. You know, the general contractors are the waste generators, typically, almost always. And so they can help by putting drywall separation in their bid specs, providing dedicated gypsum containers, and then training their subcontractors, which are typically interior installers that are specialists on how they want that scrap handled, so that we end up with clean gypsum waste so that when it arrives at the processor, they can simply push it into their drywall bunk or bin and send it off for recycling. So just to reiterate the point, if we want to improve the recovery rates, we're going to have to source separate it at the job site, or it needs to be picked off the floor in front of the processing lines. And that's really the only two options there are for improving recovery. There are some innovative new practices out there that we're seeing being adopted in some regions. This is one of them. It's called a Tommy cart. There are people using similar methods, but rather than having the drywall hanger or the contractor cut that drywall, throw it on the floor, then have day laborers pick it up, cart it to a roll-off container somewhere on the job site and dump it into that roll-off container, leaving it for the processor to try to pick that material from mixed waste or even source separate is a lot of handling. Using this model, the interior contractor can take those cutoffs, put them straight into a cart that's separated from the other waste. Nobody has to pick it up again. It goes into a box truck using a lift gate, still separated, hasn't had to be touched again, hasn't broken down. And from there, when it arrives at the processor, they can empty those carts and they've got clean source separated drywall, ready to go to a recycler. So that's one of the things that we see coming. I know that some people in the Boston marketplace are using a version of this type of handling that's been successful. So the takeaways are that, there is a separation requirement and the end markets and the processing exist. Mixed C and D lines cannot recover it. And so upstream separation is needed, much as was envisioned when the waste ban was put into place, many years ago. And so, from our standpoint as USA Gypsum, we think we have proven processing. We've been doing it for it's almost 30 years now, 27 for sure. And we have proven end markets. And so we think that the system can readily be improved. And so I'm here to answer questions. I want to thank you for your attention, and we're here to help in any way we can.
Yeah, Terry, thank you for sharing some of your statistics and expertise into this particular material. And I'm interested to see if there's any folks on the call who have specific questions. I did see one that popped up in the course of your talking. It's from Tracy at Casella. Tracy, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that or if it got answered at one point. I think you were looking for a little bit more to be able to expand on the talking about wallboard from demolition.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so being, a processor, I agree with a lot of the points that you included in there, Terry, about how difficult it is to reclaim that gypsum once it gets to us. But I was just wondering if you could just expand on, you said one criteria of not being able to recycle that is coming from demolition. And that's kind of the vast majority, I would say, of what we see. So I just wanted to understand that a little better, if you could.
Yeah, so there are several regulatory and market-driven answers to that. First and foremost, we are not permitted ourselves to recycle that product. Secondly, for our end markets, the manufacturers of new gypsum drywall, or what we call closed loop recycling, will not consider gypsum that has been recovered from demolition. And their concern is that years ago there was asbestos used in the joint compounds. They all went through bankruptcy because of it and still pay into trust funds. And so they're paranoid about that. Another practical consideration is that we do beneficially use the paper, and so paper that has come from demolition that has been painted or had wall coverings administered to it, you lose that value of the paper fibers.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Does
Thank you,
that
Terry.
answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Thank you.
I also had Caroline pop up in the chat. She said, can you confirm exactly RE minimum quantities? Caroline, is that something you can expand upon?
Well, just do we need a certain minimum quantity before it's worth it for Terry to take?
Got it. Thank you.
So most of the material that we are processing is going to the processors first, because typically they handle the hauling and all the other logistics around moving the waste from the job site to a point where we can pick it up for recycling. So, you know, just economically and environmentally, we want to pull full semi loads, you know, from the region, and they're generally consolidated by the processors who, as we discussed earlier, are actually required or mandated to take that material and hold it for us to pick up.
So the big pile at Rerocks is for you when they have that. That's what you're doing. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
John, I see you have your hand raised as well.
Yeah, thanks. Terry, you shared some helpful numbers, some data about wallboard generation estimates. I'm just curious if you have a sense of the types of places that's coming from in the split, like commercial, residential. Are there sort of specific building sectors where more or less gypsum is coming from? Just kind of curious about, you know, is there a portion of construction projects that should be targeted to capture the greatest portion of gypsum?
I could find an indication of those numbers. I didn't drill down this far, but the way to do it would be that the USGS reports the type of board, and it calls out 1/2 inch versus 5/8. And 1/2 inch is typically, you know, single family type residence, and 5/8 is typically required in all commercial style buildings. But I did not do that deep dive. Be happy to do that and follow up with you if that'd be helpful.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just trying to think if there's a best way for us to, you know, target outreach, compliance assistance, things like that.
Yeah, I was thinking of kind of a similar thing, Terry, you know, like you mentioned some of the other states and their generation. And, you know, I don't know if it's if the patterns are regional or sector based, but, you know, like who is doing really well in terms of separation, and, you know, what some of the motivators are compared to, I guess, what's happening here in Massachusetts.
Well, some of it's maturity and some of it's space, and there's, you know, any number of factors that come into how well a specific facility is able to recover. And so I often use examples of some Philly markets just because we have long histories there, and we have some people that I think do a reasonable job of making it a standard operating procedure. And I think I've told Michael this before. I always feel like if somebody's not pulling close to 3% of their overall tonnage, you need to be looking at it. Need to be looking at why that is.
Mike's actually got his hand up right now, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. And I guess I just want to take a moment to reiterate one of the messages that Terry shared with us. And particularly, I'm focusing on the C&D processors who are on this call. Terry reminded us of the 2013 C&D guidance that says that clean gypsum wallboard must be separated on the tip floor prior to any processing or transfer to another C&D facility. And I would add to that most, if not all, C&D processors now have a requirement in their operating permit to spread all loads when they arrive on the tip floor, inspect the loads, and separate clean gypsum wallboard and other zero tolerance items. We're not seeing that in recent months. In fact, just recently, I've visited some facilities, and they told me that they weren't picking any gypsum on the floor. They were picking it on the line. I think Terry made it abundantly clear today that that's not going to work, and I can assure you that we're ramping up our enforcement in the coming months. And if we see a violation of the permit that says you have to spread the loads, inspect them, and separate prior to processing or prior to loading, even worse, prior to loading into a residual pile, then we will be calling that out. So just to make that, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you making that clear. And thank you, Terry, for the time and for the expertise that you shared today. I know you've been doing this for some time, and there's really nobody who can bring more perspective than you to this conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Appreciate Terry. Obviously, if there's any other questions, feel free to jump in. Our next speaker today will be Dan Horton. And Dan is joining us from ASR Systems. So in 2009, he left his position with IKO Industries, which is an international roofing manufacturer based in Toronto, to establish asphalt shingle recycling systems, ASR. His vision was to create a roofing industry circular solution. He developed a more efficient mechanical recycling method, which separates asphalt roofing shingles, which are made of 6 raw materials, into 2 streams of reusable materials with less than 5% waste. That work is recognized by the U.S. Patent and Trade Office, which awarded Dan with 3 utility patents, a 4th on equipment design, and a 5th on centrifuge extraction. He was also awarded the U.S. patent just this year on densification of roofing powders into pellets and shapes. Dan chairs the Shingle Recycling Committee, serves as a board member of the Construction Demolition Recycling Association. He's a regular guest lecturer at Virginia Tech, and he is a co-chair of the 11th Shingle Recycling Forum, which will be held October 13th through 15th of next year in Raleigh, North Carolina. So Dan, thank you for joining us this morning, and please feel free to see your screen share coming up right now. So it's great.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to the group today. This is an honor, and it's always great to talk about one of my favorite subjects, asphalt shingle recycling. We're going to talk a little about the industry and the different projects that are going on nationwide. The issue in most states has been the development of an end market. The development of an end market actually was doing really, really well for a few years, kind of in that 2012 to 2016 range. There's been a bit of a peddling on use of shingles in roads. So I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about that today. And then I also want to discuss the roofing manufacturer support and their planned or their initiative of 50% diversion by 2035. So this is somewhat of a technical discussion in that the material that has been sold nationally since 2009 to the paving industry has been 3/8-inch RAS. So to produce 3/8-inch RAS, a Massachusetts processor or a waste company would bring the material in, C&D processor and use a one-pass system. That one-pass system would reduce the shingle into 3/8 minus. You would use water to keep the dust down and also keep the material from blinding the screens of the Rotochopper, Bandit, Peterson, or I guess CMI. It's owned by someone else now. But what's happened in the past probably 8 to 10 years is companies have looked at ways to take 3/8 minus and make better materials. So there's 6 raw materials, but the most valuable material is asphalt. So, obviously oil and gas, it's people want to learn how to recover that asphalt or make a product where the asphalt is usable. So 3/8 minus is still used in roads and is the biggest use of recycled shingles, probably at 98% in North America. I reviewed the latest report from NAPA to determine what states are leading in the country in use of RAS in roads. And we need to figure out how do we learn from that here in Massachusetts. The largest user is 230,000 tons in Pennsylvania. There's also in Illinois and Wisconsin a long-standing successful use of material in roads. In Illinois, something new happened this past, or in 2023, and that is 276,000 tons of material was used as just as an aggregate. So the reports don't show me whether that is a aggregate and unbound courses or if it's a sub base or base for hot mix asphalt roads. We can learn from, or let me go back for a second. Wisconsin DOT did a study on what they call recycled asphalt materials, or RAM. And the idea was to compare all materials that are recycled that contain asphalt, put them all in one category. So that means that RAP and RAS are in the same category because of recovered asphalt. So NAPA had put together a study discussing why state agencies aren't using recycled asphalt paving. NCAT and Wisconsin went further and said, okay, it's the exact same thing. The reasons why RAP is successful or isn't successful is probably the same reason why RAS is and isn't successful. The performance issue is probably the biggest issue, not probably. The study shows that 80% of reasons why people or limiting factors for RAP are cracking, reduced binder activation, and premature raveling, or just quality. The mixed quality, meaning that is the asphalt being activated, for example. So performance is an issue, and it's an issue with any recycled asphalt. In 2015, the Federal Highway Administration came up with a plan called Balanced Mix Design. Balanced Mix Design is a performance-based mix. So state after state is starting to adopt Balanced Mix Design. The concept is that instead of saying you have 5% RAP or 20% RAP, 5% RAS, or 10 RAP and 5 RAS, instead of saying that recycled asphalt shingles should not exceed 5%, instead what they're saying is why don't we put all this material in a lab, and maybe 3% is best with 2% rejuvenator and 8% wrap and 2% glass, et cetera, et cetera. So how do we do performance based versus just volumetric based? I took the 2023 use and compared it to the states that have adopted that BMD platform. So Pennsylvania is in the pre-implementation. So that they went from 125,000 use in 2022 to 230 in 2023. Illinois is very active, and they're the largest state in use of recycled shingles, but they're the second largest in use of recycled shingles and hot mix asphalt. They are taking a performance spec with a volumetric approach. Volumetric meaning percentage, 5% RAS. In Massachusetts, we're using SuperPave, but we're in a pre-implementation stage, and University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, Walla McGower has a grant to study BMD. I'm not sure if RAS is going to be a part of that study, but I have been in contact with them, and obviously I could use any help from anyone here on the phone call to help get that done. I'll talk a little bit more about that study in a second. So balanced mixed design studies, the University of Massachusetts has a little over $600,000 grant to study this particular process that will go through June 2028. And there's information here. When you get this document afterwards, these links are usable, so they'll be usable in the PDF that you'll get after the meeting. The Wisconsin DOT studied recycled binders, including RAP and RAS, and again, we're putting them all, or Wisconsin put them all in the same bucket to determine what's going wrong and how can we increase recycled rates of recycled asphalt shingles in Massachusetts. So the whole reason for going into this is the end market is not strong in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Maine, or Vermont. So none of New England or Connecticut. We don't have a strong end market. The only path, or the quickest path, is to roof to roads. So in that DOT report, this is a reference slide. I should say that. It's a reference slide for you to read after the meeting. There's four reasons and four solutions to use of RAP and RAS in roads, particularly RAS in roads, and they're explained here. But this is directly from the Wisconsin report. I've summarized it a bit. This does not look like a summary, I know, but I did summarize it. But the issues are what percentage of the asphalt is being activated. That's one. And then number two, are we giving too much credit to the asphalt, which would create a dry road? So 4 states have adopted a 0.6 and 0.85 factor to account for the non-active binder. And then characterization of the binders, for example, is the binder really stiff? And if so, it'd be nice to know that before you put the stuff in the roads. And that's what balanced mixed design is kind of looking at the chemical composition of the asphalt and determining what that chemical composition, if it can be changed with a recycling agent or with a little more asphalt, which is the final part of this. Do you add a little more asphalt to solve that problem? Do you add a recycling agent, or do you, can you blend wrap, brass, and virgin and get the right combination? The roofing industry is behind us. They're very excited about recycling. They've aspired to recycle 50% of all waste, or divert 50% of all waste in the landfills across the country to something, either to roads, back to roofing, or to maybe industries we're not even aware of yet. The next 5 or 6 slides I'm going to go through pretty quickly. These are roofing manufacturers' initiatives and their solutions. And thankfully, I've been a part of 2 of these manufacturers and their solutions. GAF has separated the material into 2 streams, same as my patents allow, creating a roofing granule and then a asphaltic limestone briquette. The briquette can be melted or dissolved in liquid asphalt for reuse back in shingles. Owens Corning has an extraction approach where they decompensate the shingle, creating 3 products, calcium carbonate, sand, and asphalt. This is in a pilot stage. Again, I'm going through these quickly. You'll get these slides and you can read, what the challenges are and what's next. An interesting approach is CertainTeed. They've built a business out of something called RenewCore, which is a pellet, which is introduced on the dry side of manufacturing of roads in the wrap bin, and that material is a pellet that is then melted in the drum of the hot mix asphalt plant with the liquid and hot rock. They just finished a road project in Minnesota, and has its origins in Washington. The DOT was Washington State was using that material there. There's a company called North Star, which is partly funded by a roofing manufacturer named Tamco. They are building a facility, or they've actually finished it and processed material in November, which is extraction. So they decompensate the shingle just like Owens Corning, creating liquid and or a pellet. Their goal is to be the Tim Hortons of shingle recycling. So they would love to have either owned, licensed, or joint venture projects in North America. I built my first facility in 2010 in Bristol, Tennessee, sorting, grinding, screening. It was my research and development facility. I did a small pilot down in Stratford, Connecticut, making powder, putting the powder in bags, selling the bags to roofing manufacturing. Roofing manufacturing, we put the material, the powder, into wet side asphalt blending. So there we drop the material into hot liquid asphalt, melting the materials. Built a plant in Hawkesbury, Ontario, that reduces shingles, separating the material into 2 streams, powder and granules. That project is going well. I was involved over the past 2 years. This could be helpful here in Massachusetts with a project with University of New Hampshire and Vermont Agency of Transportation, testing shingles minus 6-inch roofing waste for use in roads as full depth reclamation. CDRA, I'm proud to announce that we are going to have a industry-wide LCA on 3/8 minus and granular RAS. And that is has been kicked off. The project has been kicked off. We hope to have this project finished by October next year. Also invite you to visit shinglerecycling.org. It's the most comprehensive online resource for asphalt shingle recycling. The CDRA and our Asphalt Shingle Recycling Committee, which I'm honored to be a part of, we keep that continually updated and lots of information. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, join us at the Shingle Recycling Forum in 2026. I'm open for questions, and sorry that took so long, but a lot of information and a lot of it will be read, I'm sure. So,
yeah, appreciate it, Dan. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, your work on this, and again, some of these useful kind of basis for knowledge for us to kind of jump into this conversation. I did notice a couple of comments in the chat. If anybody would like to ask a question of Dan, please either raise your hand and drop it in the chat. Amy Perlmutter here in Massachusetts, she mentioned there were a couple of researchers at UMass Dartmouth and WPI who did research for Chelsea Center back in the day on using waste asphalt shingles and hot mix asphalt. There's a technical report that she linked to as well there. And then I did notice some additional discussion on Terry's presentation too, and I know Terry answered some of those questions regarding the gypsum. Johannes had one on, and I guess this is a question here of, what's the role of states in all this? Is MassDEP advocating for balanced mix design to be used by the MassDOT? I don't know, Mike, if you have any experience in that conversation. I know that your subcommittee has had folks from DOT on in the past. Don't know if there's any additional perspective to share there from our side.
Yeah, and I'll I guess I'll also ask if John Fisher, after I make my brief comments, if he has anything to add. But John, Greg Cooper, and I from MassDEP did meet with the UMass Transport Center, which is out in Amherst, at UMass Amherst. But actually, the principal expert on the call was Dr. Magauer that Dan referred to, and Dr. Magauer is down in UMass Dartmouth. He heads up the Mass Highway Sustainability Research Center. And my big takeaway from talking to Dr. Magauer was essentially all the reasons that Dan told us why the New England states don't use RAS, recycled asphalt shingles, or RAP, recycled asphalt pavement, which we do use some. I guess we do use some RAP, but definitely we don't use RAS very much. And the biggest reason was all the things that Dan listed. The brittleness, the activation of the binder, so on. Just he had a laundry list. And Dr. Magauer told us that he felt he didn't mention balanced mix design at all. Okay, I didn't ask him, but he didn't mention it. I didn't think to ask. I wasn't aware that was something UMass was working on. What he said was he thought the fastest, the most viable market for recycled asphalt shingles in Massachusetts, maybe in New England overall, is in gravel roads, as like a surfacing agent or surfacing layer for gravel roads. It converts gravel roads into what almost looks like a paved road. Yeah. And the other thing, my other big takeaway was the reason why recycled asphalt shingles aren't really used in hot mix asphalt in repaving projects in Massachusetts and New England in general is because our infrastructure has all been laid out already. And so when they repave a road, they're only repaving, the top couple inches. So they don't do full depth repaving. if they did do full depth repaving, then the Mass DOT spec already does allow up to 3% recycled asphalt shingles in the I think it's called the binder layer, whatever the base is. And I apologize if Dan, if I'm messing up the the terminology, but I think you understand what I'm saying, and hopefully the people on the call. So yeah, Dr. McGower didn't sound at all open to using recycled asphalt shingles and hot mix asphalt on the surface layers, but he thought it could be used. It's already allowed to be used in the binder layer, and he feels like there's a good opportunity for gravel roads. John Fisher, am I missing anything?
Yeah, I think you captured the main points that came to mind for me, Mike. Sort of the gravel and unpaved surfaces, and if there were like new road construction being used in the base layer. So yeah, those were my primary takeaways also.
I do want to get along to our last speaker, but I figured there is one more question we just received, and this would be for Dan. Are manufacturers recycling just new cutoff, or are they recycling post-consumer shingles at the manufacturer's facilities?
So both. Owens Corning, Certainty, and ICO, or I'm sorry, Owens Corning, Certainty, and GAF are all processing and recycling post-consumer for reuse, and they're really working hard to get acceptance and reuse in roads. ICO is recycling only post-industrial for reuse back into shingles, so a shingle-to-shingle project. Owens Corning has 50% of their initiative to shingle recycling post-consumer to reuse in shingles, and 50% for reuse in roads.
Okay, thank you. I do see a couple other questions popping up. If it's okay for the folks on the call, maybe we can circle back to those at the conclusion here, because I do want to keep time in mind. We do have one more presenter. So, Dan, thank you,
Thank you
for sharing. Thank you for your time today. And we're going to get along to our next presenter here. And that is Alex Fernandez, who is the Vice President of Government Affairs and Advocacy for the Polymeric Exterior Products Association, PEPA. He's originally from Miami, Florida, is a graduate of Florida International University and University of Dayton Law School of Law, where he obtained his JD. And in his role with PEPA, he is responsible for the association's government affairs matters as well as various sustainability projects. So, hearing about vinyl and those other exterior products today from Alex.
Hi, Sean. Let me just make sure first you can hear me.
Sure, yes.
Excellent. And second, I'll make it easy for everyone on the call. We actually call it PEPA. We call the acronym PEPA, just like the pig.
I was going to ask about that. Okay, so we can call it PEPA with confidence.
You can, and I appreciate how delicate you were with that, but we have embraced it. We even have the stuffed animals, and I have 3 daughters, so I never minded about that. But yeah, so you guys can refer to us as PEPA. We used to be the Vinyl Siding Institute, and I've got a couple of things here. I'll start with my slide deck because I know we're kind of time crunched, but the good news is I think I'm going to come in under time. But let me first share this screen here, make sure I'm doing this right. It's saying allow multiple presenters to share only one person.
Okay. Yeah. Dan, can you pull your screen share down, please? Thank you. There we go. Now it's you, Alex.
All right, here we go.
Nothing yet.
Yeah, I might have to do it.
There we go.
This one here. Can you see it?
Yep, now I can.
It's not optimal. I can't make it full screen, but not all that relevant because I think we'll share it afterwards. But first off, I'll jump in and tell you what I'm going to talk about today. The topic I'm here to talk about today is Revinylize, and that is our recycling initiative that we launched 5 years ago. It's a post-consumer rigid plastics recycling program. So that means all materials coming down after use on a consumer's home or an apartment building, anything like that. And as you can see here from our sponsors, the materials that are typically included or the materials that we're typically looking to help be recycled are large piping, the smaller piping, all vinyl siding materials, decking, fencing, things like that. And most recently is window trim and materials that are part of the fenestration of any given house. And this I'll talk about just very briefly to distinguish. Revinylize is a product, it's a part of PEPA. And PEPA is the trade association that represents the polymeric exterior manufacturers in North America. So again, think siding, think trim, soffits, decking, flooring, things like that. Those are our members. They manufacture these materials and they're part of the program as oftentimes end markets, although we have other end markets that are not necessarily part of PEPA, but are part of Revinylize. So big picture wise, why I'm here, and I appreciate you having me here to talk about this program because it is near and dear to my heart. It's something that I was part of the launch of. The reason I'm here is to really solicit membership in Massachusetts, in New England for this program. And membership can take, for the purpose of this call, can take on really two forms. One would be a collection site, which is a location where you're comfortable having a bin that is generally provided by the recycler and picked up by the recycler and managed by the recycler for the most part. So that would be a collection site. We'd be looking for locations where you're comfortable having those recycling bins situated. And second, we are also looking for recyclers in the New England region, Massachusetts being, a prime focus for the initiative. The main reason why it's such a prime focus for the initiative is because these materials are extremely popular in the Northeast due to their durability, their acceptance in the region. Really, the Midwest and the Northeast are two of our largest markets for our members. So we know there is a lot of these materials coming down there, and we are trying to get a foothold there after launching in Ohio and kind of expanding to some other places that I'll talk to in a minute. So that's just, and this, the third slide here that you'll be able to see on your own time and at your own discretion is kind of what we stand for in terms of the sustainability, the advocacy, and like what we're trying to do in the workforce development space. I'm not going to talk at all about that really, but it's there and you're welcome to look at it. Fortunately, I have a very, I think, entertaining video that I think does a better job than I could ever do at describing what the program looks like in a practical sense. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to collapse this and I'm going to launch the video. It's about 7 minutes long. And I'm going to just confirm, can you still hear me clearly?
Yes, confirmed.
Excellent. And I'm going to launch the video.
I'm Tim Ritterboss, and I've got another sustainability story to tell. This time, we're heading all the way down the Mississippi to tell it. Welcome to New Orleans. This story brings together recyclers, associations, manufacturers, and contractors with the goal of setting up a system to recycle vinyl siding from 3 New Orleans area Habitat for Humanity homes. To do it well, all the stakeholders will need to collaborate to remove, capture, ship, and recycle the siding. But like any good plan, it's best when it begins over a meal. To learn more about this project and the team involved, we met at a local restaurant known for its NOLA cuisine.
All right. Right, y'all, got some ribs and turkey necks here. Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank y'all. Dig in.
Hey, welcome to New Orleans. I'm so excited about this project. I'm so excited to be here with you guys. I want to learn a little about what we're going to be doing this week. So Rich, you're with Habitat for Humanity. There's going to be a lot of talk about recycling and building products, but really at the end of the day, like what you guys are doing is incredibly important. What does something like this mean to
the homeowners that we're serving this week.
This is hugely important to them, and it helps preserve generational wealth and enrich not just their lives, the community's lives.
Alex, question for you. You're with Revitalize. What is Revitalize and what does it do?
So Revitalize is an initiative that is a product of PEPA, the Polymeric Exterior Products Association. We're the trade association that represents manufacturers of polymeric building products. We seek to partner individuals in the circular recycling economy, with the end goal being to recycle as much post-consumer rigid plastic as possible.
Adam, super glad you're here. For those that don't know, what is Brave?
Brave is a way to bring people together and fix broken systems. I think the way to fix it is to bridge the layers of the supply chain together, because most of the time each layer doesn't understand what the other layer is doing. And so to be an entity that can come in and fill gaps and basically solve problems to connect those dots and make things flow better, it's what I think is going to improve the recycling system.
Well, guys, I think this is going to be a great week. And my only other question is, who's going to be the first one to try the turkey neck?
Our dinner also had a few other important members of the team, including Jay Thomas from the Vinyl Institute, Marguerite Olstreicher from Habitat for Humanity, Matt Dobson from PEPA, Rob Belfins from Progressive Foam Technologies, and Matt Reese from Certainty.
So now we're on the job site and we've got these 3 homes to demo. The first thing we're going to do is take off all the vinyl siding. When we do that, we're going to save it so it can be recycled. And today, we're starting with that one.
As the team from RCI and Associates demoed each of the 3 homes, a trailer was staged so any vinyl siding that came off the houses had a place to be collected. Next, the trailers of vinyl were transported to a local collection area, which in this case was the New Orleans area Habitat for Humanity headquarters. From here, the vinyl was loaded in containers provided by Brave Industries so they could be transported to the end recycler. I was able to catch back up with Matt and Alex from Revitalized to learn a little more about their organization and how they've already shown these collaborative vinyl recycling programs can work. What may be even more interesting is how big of an opportunity actually exists for this material.
And you guys just had a program where you were attempting to recycle 5 million pounds of vinyl. And I saw that Revitalized had hit this 5 million pound goal, which is incredible. How much material is actually out there for us to be able to recycle?
I mean, when you think about it, with vinyl siding having been in the marketplace for, 60, almost 70 years now, a lot of that product is coming to end of useful life. Typical house would maybe have 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of vinyl that's coming down. So overall, and we ran statistics, we're looking at about 300 million pounds per year available for recycling. And that's just siding.
These 3 homes were now ready for brand new vinyl siding, which was manufactured and donated by Certainty. Matt was able to tell me a little more about their participation in this program and their efforts to promote vinyl recycling.
We were able to donate material. We have one of our Main Street products here in a Wedgwood blue, beautiful color. Was happy to be able to donate it to the homeowners here and get this project off the ground. Our initiative is really to drive the end users to be able to recycle our products. So what we're trying to do is drive awareness at the contractor and homeowner level to participate in some of our recycling programs. We partner with Revitalize, with various distribution drop-off locations, and really trying to drive awareness.
What I heard over and over on this project was the need for collaboration between the different players in the value chain. Working together is the best way to build systems for recycling post-consumer material like vinyl. To do it well, recyclers, associations, material manufacturers, contractors, and local collection points all need to coordinate and communicate to capture and collect material so it can be processed and put back into something new. Oh, and those Brave bins? They didn't stay at the Habitat parking lot. They were shipped off to be recycled at JPI.
This is Dax Smith, and the bins have just arrived here at JPI. And if we look inside these bins, we'll see vinyl from 3 Habitat homes that are being refaced at the moment. And what we're going to do is we're going to throw it on the line, regrind it, and turn it into something new that can be used elsewhere. Thanks to everyone who is participating in this project. JPI is happy to be a part of it.
Back on the job site, the crew was working hard to finish these houses and get them wrapped in that beautiful Wedgwood blue siding. this story would not be complete if we didn't talk to one of the homeowners. In a testament to the quality of these Habitat homes, Nija told me how she received the keys to her new house just a few months before Hurricane Katrina back in 2005. Now, 20 years later, she's able to share her thoughts about being part of this program.
So I received the phone call maybe like a month ago, just talking about the sustainability program, and asked if I wanted to be a part of it. And of course, I do, and I did. And I'm so pleased and so grateful and thankful for this opportunity to refresh my home, but also to, be a part of something greater than myself.
What an incredible story to tell. These 3 Habitat homes now have new vinyl siding that is going to last for decades. And in addition to that, because a whole bunch of companies came together to collaborate, the vinyl we pulled off has been recycled by design. I can't wait to tell the next story.
All right. So that's the video, and let me just go back to the slide deck here. All right. Make sure I'm unmuted. Beautiful. All right. So that video is just an example of what the program effectively looks like. Peppa's role in the program, what we do is we do really 2 things. One is we have a great handle on the logistics of this. I think you've heard from all of the other presenters about how the logistics and the marketing of it, the market aspects of it, the practical elements of it can be very complicated. And we've been doing it now for 5 years, and I'm going to show on the map where we've expanded to with the program. But we have a great grasp on the logistics, and we can really make it work. The other thing that I'll talk about in a second is how the program is not really one size fits all. You got to think about it more like a snapback hat, which can fit any number of people. The program can be tailored because of the way that it is right now, the way that it's really in its infancy is the way I look at it. The program can fit pretty much anybody's model in terms of how they're running their business, any recycler's model, any collector's model. We can really find a way to make it work because it's very nimble, and it's in a position where we are able to do that. So with that, let me kind of just go through some of these slides very, very briefly. The main one I want to get to are the different ways that people can get involved in this program. I talked about the 2 main ways and the main ways that I'm soliciting for, which are the collection sites, which is number 1, what I'm looking for. And I'm hoping at the end of this call and in the next few weeks after it, we are able to say that we've developed some collection sites in Massachusetts and in New England. Really, that'd be optimal. And then the second is the recycler. And to be a recycler in the program, to fall in that category, you're really looking at someone who is recycling the material at their facility, someone who's grinding it at their facility, perhaps even baling it. So it all depends on, what you're doing there, if there's a way that we can make it work. And what I should do is take a very, very brief step back. It's a third-party verified program. So Green Circle Certified confirms that the collection site that you're proposing, or that the recycler site that you're proposing, meets certain third-party objective standards to fall into the program. Because at the end of the day, the goal is for us to deliver data showing that we've collected as much post-consumer rigid plastics as possible. But it's not just doing it. We need those numbers to be verifiable, to be objective, to be certified, because that's the goal of the program. That's the only way we can keep the program growing, is if we're developing reliable, credible numbers. So all of the data that comes out of this program is third-party verified and is reported up the chain to the Vinyl Institute and to the other stakeholders in the program to confirm that it's working the way it's intended to work. And then this is the other thing I wanted to point out. One of the other things that we do as the trade association, as the people running this program, is we market the program very heavily. So if you come on board as a recycler or as a collection site, not only do we help with the logistics of it, but we also do an intense amount of promotion at the beginning on social media, targeted ads. We bring you on board on our map, which when someone goes on our website, they can go to this map and they can find the collection site or collection region And we put you on there, and we also promote that you are now on board and collecting the materials. And to that end, one of the other things that we bring to the table, which is like the number one thing that I'm asked about, is we bring the end markets to the table. As I mentioned at the beginning, many of our members are looking to collect, to bring back in these materials, whether they be baled or grinded up. And then we also have a number of members in the Revitalize program who are not members of PEPA, who are just in the business of recycling and are looking for these materials themselves. And they themselves are an end market to them because either they're going to sell them to someone who doesn't use them in construction, or maybe they're going to sell them abroad. I mean, there's a variety of different ways that this commodity is used in terms of an end market. So, as I mentioned earlier, we launched in Cuyahoga County, and from there we've expanded out to Texas, Colorado, Louisiana, Louisville, and our major location so far is also Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. Pennsylvania is probably our number one place for recycling. A lot of our recyclers are there. Some of our end markets are there. So that is the map, and that's more or less how the program works. The goal this year was to collect 5 million pounds of material by the end of the year. We met that goal in October. We'll have our final numbers at the beginning of next year, but we have really crushed it, and I'm very proud of the work that everyone has put into the program. And the slides, you can look at them on your own, but this talks a little bit about how much material is out there in a new construction versus a remodel. But that's not all that salient to what we're talking about today, as we're kind of discussing this more in a philosophical sense. And then last but not least, this slide here has my contact information, and I put it in the chat as well. But that's my email address, that's my cell phone number. I would love to talk at the end of this presentation or in the coming weeks about having some of you either come on board or kind of point me in the right direction for Massachusetts and New England, because that is the primary focus for 2026. So I'll stop there. I'll answer any questions to the best of my abilities. And I really appreciate that you guys took the time to let me come and present on this topic today.
Thank you, Alex. And yeah, to you and all the speakers. Everybody here really brought it in terms of their presentations, brought a lot of knowledge to the table. And again, hopefully there's some connections and some value that comes out of these conversations here. I was impressed with the kind of holistic approach that Revitalize takes, and that was a really cool video. So thank you for sharing that with us.
My pleasure.
Are there any specific questions for Alex at this point? I'm actually checking. Nothing in the Q&A. I know that Dan there were a couple of additional questions for Dan that kind of held over from the previous presentation about his grinding process, and he answered that in the chat, and I sent a chat to the asker as well, saying that we can follow up on the permitting question. But do we have any specific? Let's see. We have a question. Do you have a spec for the grinding size of the siding, and are there end markets that are partnered with you in New England?
Yeah, we're going to have one end market coming on board near the Boston area by the end of this year. So for sure, we'll have one end market. A big part of the program is like we're the matchmaker. So we connect the end market with the people doing the collecting, with the contractors. We make that relationship, but what we don't get involved in is like the economics of it. And part of the economics is like how you're going to deliver to that end market the materials, because the quality of the material is going to impact how much you get paid for it.
Yeah.
So to that end, you can work that out. Like the short answer to that question is that the end markets are going to have certain ways they want it. They're going to run quality testing on it, but they'll let you know how they want it. And they are going to be not as rigid, not to make a pun or anything, but they're not going to be as rigid about it depending on the quality of it. So it's not anything that's set in stone. It's something you can negotiate.
And there was a follow-up. Does that mean the end of this year or next year?
End of this year, hopefully online by Q1 of next year.
All right. Great. Any other questions from the chat, or if anybody wants to raise their hand? I will say too, as we head for 12 o'clock, we have a couple of informational slides. Shouldn't take any more than 3 or 4 minutes. Obviously, we value the time of folks who are participating here. So, but we do just want to get a little bit of DEP-related information out at the end. Phil has his hand raised. Phil, please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Phil Goddard, Town of Bourne. Thanks for doing the joint committee. This is good to see everybody coming together. And I've mentioned these things at the C&D subcommittee level, and I'll mention it at the joint meeting. Excellent presentations by everybody. As you update the master plan and go into 2026, I think these kind of partnership joint meetings are good to have, Michael. And I would urge strongly DP encourage someone from DCAM and DOT to come to these meetings. We've talked about this, I've been talking about it for 25 years. So we have the state as a user, we have the state as a generator. What are their roles, and what could they do to support these folks in the generation side and use them and get them on state contracts, and maybe even have OSD involved in writing, better language into, separation plans for state projects, et cetera, et cetera. There's also the Embedded Carbon Intergovernmental Coordinating Council, and I've spoken at those meetings about the projects and using materials. And there's obviously the Cape Cod Canal projects. It's a $4 billion project. So I mentioned that because markets, they all kind of relate together. So the state's a major player here, and it's great to see these markets are developing. The other thing I would encourage is I deal with a lot of small contractors, and I just don't know that the average small business owner really knows about any of this. They don't know, so if there's a way to reach out to the small contractors through either, I don't know, insurance brokers, if there's an association, promote recycling works more to get to the small finished carpenters, the local crew that has a couple of trucks and maybe 10 folks, roofers, really push it out to the roll-off pickup truck van with a trailer level that need to understand that these are out there. I do my best to educate them, and we separate the gypsum, but they're really not aware of a lot of this, and it's just not in, and they're not on websites Googling DEP wastebands every day. So, we're going to try to do some more promotion, but I think the more the state can reach out and let them know what's going on, and that container you mentioned, I can't remember what it was called, at the job site, I would certainly love to see them do those kind of things. So those are some practical suggestions as you move into 2026 to go to the next level and really drill down, and how do we make the logistics of this work? Because, Tip O'Neill had a saying, all politics is local, but all markets and logistics are local in this business. So really encouraged to see the presenters. So keep up the great work. Look forward to a great 2026. Thanks.
Thanks, Phil. Good suggestions. I did see Julia Wolf from OSD on the call, and maybe I'll convene with her after just to see, what sort of opportunities then will be there. But yes, all good suggestions. I think you were talking about, was the Tommy bin, maybe was the container, right? I know Alex just said in the chat that he needed to drop off. Tommy Cart, thank you. That he needed to drop off. And a note to Paul Frade announced that he was interested as well in this. And Phil, there's a chat from Caroline to you. So I did just want to jump back on real quick with a couple of DEP announcements. Again, we respect everybody's time, so we'll try to get you out of here. Let's see. No, not from there. From there. Mike Elliott's going to handle this first one. There's a new reporting form I know he wanted to mention here before we leave. Mike?
Thank you, Sean. And I also, if I don't get a chance to speak again, I really thank all of the speakers. They were great presentations today. I thought really just full of useful information. So it exceeded my expectations. Fantastic.
Yeah, the next step is to circulate this stuff, right? So get it out there, like Phil was saying. So
finally going to get off.
That's what we're working on.
Finally going to get off my my mean face that I've been had all morning, and I'm going to talk about, I hope, this new C&D annual report form, which you'll find very, very pleasing. We rolled it out in June. We've had 18 of our large C&D processors using it quarterly since then. We improved a little bit in October, and it's up on our webpage. This is what all the C&D handling facilities, large and small, should be using going forward. And I have the link here to the webpage, the DEP webpage, where the forms, the report form is available. Like I say, it's Excel format. it was really driven primarily by the requests of the stakeholders to make our reporting forms more effective, more the precision. They wanted improved precision and accuracy, and we worked with our stakeholders over several workshops. We rolled this out. We beta tested it. We've used it now for 4 quarters this year because we had people go back and do the first 2 quarters. And we think we've got it down to a science. This is on the right side of the screen there. That's just the cover page where you put in your information. It's got things like validated fields for material types, mass balance tables, and it automatically calculates the process separation rate on the final tab. So and it's much easier to navigate. So we think you're all going to like this. Reminder: annual reports are due every year on February 15th. For those facilities that are subject to the quarterly reports, they're due on the 15th day after the end of each quarter. You want to go to the next slide for a second, John?
Yeah, I was going to mention the recycling reuse business development grants. We're looking to post the next round of these grants by January 2026. We've had these for around a decade now. Eligible materials for these are container glass, bulky reusable materials, construction and demolition materials, so like today's meeting, textiles, food materials, and mattresses. So processes, that are dealing with these particular materials. We're talking about, for equipment or capital costs related to processing, manufacturing, or reuse. So that's all coming up in January. I know there's some folks, I've even seen on the call here who benefited from one of these grants. If you're interested in getting in for the next cycle, there's the information there. And then I know Mike has a little note here as well.
Yep. Just a reminder to all the folks in the C&D community on the call that EBC will be conducting its 20th annual C&D Materials Management Summit this coming Friday, February 27th at the Residence Inn in Natick. It's an in-person meeting, runs from 9 to 3. And EBC touts this as it's the primary industry forum that explores the state of the C&D industry in New England. Please contact EBC if you have questions. There's a link here to register. And I will just note that EBC offers reduced rates for government employees, students, and job seekers.
All right, thank you. That's and yeah, I see Phil has a raised hand as well right here.
Sorry, one last comment. Just that Carolyn, I think it is, put in there, that I'd suggest you reach out to them. It's a great organization. It's exactly what I'm talking about. It just occurred to me, the green team is in the middle schools, et cetera, with all sorts of curricula on recycling and so forth. But we have an entire new generation that's going through the vocational schools and the trades, that if we could get to them with these messages, what the C&D subcommittee is all about, and they have that sort of ethos in their, thinking about they're going to the next generation of contractors, right? And they can influence their bosses when they come out. So I don't know if you can work with the green team to come up with a unit of an hour or two for the senior level about all these programs. They're going to be the young apprentices and folks coming up in the trades. So that's another way to get the message out. So vocational schools are really quite hot to get into now. You have to get on a waiting list. So it's a good sign. So just a thought for the next generation.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate you sharing that, Phil, and Caroline also for the comment. Mike, hand up. Yes.
I saw a comment in the chat from Matt Hughes asking if there's any particular reason why the quarterly reports are due on the 15th. And he says, there's a lot going on. It's a pretty stressful time, for the month of January, and he suggested pushing it out to the 30th of the month. I think that's a reasonable request. I need to, of course, run it by John and internal management, but I think that, for me anyway, that seems like a reasonable request, and we'll definitely consider that.
All right, thanks, Mike. It's just the quarterlies. I mean, the annuals are fine. It's just the quarterly reports. It does get kind of tight when you're running around doing a bunch of different facilities, and there's other things to attend to at the same time. So I appreciate the consideration.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. I was seeing a few things popping up here. Again, I want to get folks along with their day. So we popped a link in for the Recycling Reuse Business Development Grant. Yeah, and I think we had said earlier that we would be looking to announce the Innovation Grant awards in sometime in the winter here, in the coming months. Can't give an exact date on that, but that is something that we're looking to announce soon. So let's see. I'm just seeing a lot of chats popping up right at the end. Thank you, Nicole. Dropped into the green team email. Great. Okay, we have covered all the bases. We went a little over, but again, I thank folks for hanging on here and also for the robust amount of participation today. And again, to the speakers, this is really, for Mike and our team at DEP, I think we'd love to do this again. And continue to explore other markets or go into greater depth on some of the markets that we've already covered here. A lot was put on the table today, some food for thought, and hopefully a basis for some future work going forward. So thanks everybody for your time. Happy to continue conversations offline. I think all of us, would be happy to do that. So we look forward to having those and to seeing you in the new year. Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for supporting, Sean. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Terry. You as well. All right, I'm going to end this meeting in
Thank you.
3, 2, 1.